Hey guys, Sarah here. Welcome back to my channel. Today I am in my kitchen on the floor. We're going to talk about my kitchen cabinets. I recently painted them. They were an ugly orange oak color. They were super dated and my kitchen needed an upgrade. So I decided to paint my cabinets this white color, and then I also got new hardware, drawer pulls, and then also for the cabinets. So I just want to talk about kind of the process, the materials, and then the tips and tricks that I learned along the way of how I painted my cabinets. So if you want to see all of that, then just keep watching. So I'm going to preface this by saying that this project took me way longer than I ever thought it would take me. I'm pretty efficient when it comes to doing home projects, and I thought I could knock this out pretty quickly, but it took me so long. It's not that it's hard, it's just that it's time consuming. So keep that in mind. Don't expect your kitchen to be put back together in a couple of days. It does take a while, and it depends on how many cabinets and drawers and everything that you have. So I have quite a few cabinets, and then on the side of my refrigerator I have a big wall, and then on the side of my pantry I also have a wall, and then I have a little area with stools, and so under where your feet are, all of that had to be painted too. So there were quite a few surfaces on top of my regular cabinets. So first I'm going to show you the before of what my kitchen looked like before I touched it.
Okay, this is an overview of my kitchen. I have the gorgeous backsplash with the fruit on it, and then this very ugly countertop. And then I have the fridge. I took the cabinets out that are above here already, but those will also be replaced. And then it was this ugly beige color. I actually just painted it this color. I forgot to do the video before I painted it.
All right, now that you have seen the before, let's talk about the very first step. Is you are going to want to take all of your cabinet doors off and all of the drawers out, and then also take off all of the hardware. You can do this with a screwdriver or a drill. I found a drill to be way easier. I always use a drill if I have the option, just because it's so much faster and so much less work, especially if you're doing a big project like this. Once all of your doors and drawers are out, all of the hardware is off, keep your hardware in a safe place. I lost a few screws, so I ended up going to Lowe's and replacing the screws, so you don't want to do that. Just put everything in a little baggie. And then also on the back of all of my cabinet doors, I wrote numbers. So the top was 1 through whatever, and then the bottom was 1A through whatever number A. So I made sure that everything had a number coordinated to it, and I put the number and the letter inside where the hinge goes, because it's not somewhere that I would paint anyway. So even after they were painted, the numbers and stuff were still there, so I knew exactly which cabinet went where when it came time to put all of the cabinets back up. Once you have everything ready to go, it's time to prep your cabinets. So you just want to make sure that they don't have any grime on them. Just do a quick scrub. And there's a lot of just like grease and heat and food and everything in the kitchen, so you want to make sure all of the cabinets are clean. And then you can either sand them with sandpaper or a sander, or you can degloss them. If you want to sand them, just be careful. You don't want to ruin any of the detailing on the cabinets. I chose to degloss. I had never even heard of deglossing before I did this project, so it was totally new to me. If you do decide to degloss, make sure you wear gloves, because the chemicals are pretty strong, and make sure that you can have like your windows open or a fan going or something, because you need ventilation. I started this project at the end of the summer, so it was still warm out and I could just have my windows and doors open, but now obviously it's getting colder outside, so depending on where you live, just make sure you have good ventilation when you're doing the deglossing process. And then all of my doors and drawer fronts went into my garage, and so I did everything out there where it is nice and ventilated as well.
Okay, so this is what they look like after the deglosser. I just have to go through and wipe them off with a wet towel and then with a dry towel, and then we can prime. Okay, please excuse the fact that my house is a total disaster now. I have taped under all of the cabinets so that I can start priming, and I just have to degloss all of these, but everything is taped off.
Once everything is deglossed, it is time to prime everything. This is the primer that I use. This is from Binson, I believe. It's painted over, so I can't see the brand name, but I will link this as well as every single thing that I use down below in the bottom bar so that you are not searching for it. But this is the 123 water-based primer. I've used this to refinish furniture too, and it works really well. I love this stuff, and it's just a white primer. I put this on with a foam roller for the flat parts, and then I used a foam brush around all of the detail areas, and then just like up in here, I had taped everything off, which is another step that I already forgot to tell you to do. First, you tape everything and then you prime. But I used just a foam roller or a foam brush for the smaller areas and then a foam roller for the bigger areas. You don't want to leave brush strokes, so using a foam brush is a good way to not have any brush strokes in your paint.
Okay, so I have 2 coats of primer on this side of the doors. I'm getting ready to flip them over and we'll do 2 coats of primer on the others. All the doors are flipped. We are ready to prime. Everything is primed with 2 coats of primer. And now we are going to go in and paint. And you can see, not really that well, but you can see that it's not completely opaque yet.
I did 2 coats of primer, and then there were a couple of places on the doors and drawers that needed just a little bit of spot priming, and so I did that just because on here you don't see this back as much as you see the drawers and the cabinets, and so the base seemed like it was pretty good with the coats that I put on, but it was just some areas that I wanted to make sure I was really taking my time and doing it right, and I needed to spot prime just a couple of areas for a 3rd coat. I also want to warn you that this does take a lot of coats. So it's not just something that you're going to throw on a coat of paint and then be done like you can when you paint a room. That is not the case. It's definitely more time consuming than that. So I did 2 coats of primer and then 1 coat of just spot priming, and then I got to move on to paint. And this actually set me back about a week and a half because the paint that I used is Sherwin-Williams, and they offer 40% off deals quite often, usually about once a month. And so I knew that the sale was coming up, so I waited to buy my paint. So I had everything sitting all the way done being primed, but I had to wait so that I could buy the paint. Honestly, to me it was worth it just because I was so busy anyway, but 40% off is huge, especially if you're buying like an $80 or $90 can of paint. So this is the paint that I use. It's the Sherwin-Williams Pro Classic. This is in the satin finish, and I got the color Alabaster, which Alabaster is a bit of a creamier white, so obviously you can see how they turned out. They look pretty white in person to me, but if you put like a white piece of paper next to it, you can tell that they are a little bit creamier and not completely white. I did that because I do have white appliances that I'm not planning on replacing anytime soon. I thought that it would go better with some of the other decor pieces and furniture that I have in my house. I know that Alabaster is pretty popular, and then there's also a few other Sherwin-Williams colors that are pretty popular too. If you go on Pinterest, you'll see tons of different options of white shades from Sherwin-Williams. I highly recommend this paint. It was so easy to work with, and I just think that paint is not something I wanted to skimp on when it comes to how my cabinets are gonna look. Again, with the paint, I did foam rolling, and I used a foam brush for the detail areas. The exact same thing, the foam roller went pretty quickly. You can pick them up at a decent price. And in between coats, I just put a little, I have those like small trash bags that go into like your bathroom garbage can, just like the small plastic ones, but I would just put that around the foam roller and then make sure, like twist it around the foam roller enough times that it was airtight. And then you can just use the same foam roller that you use the first day for your 2nd coat and however many coats you need. I did the same thing with my primer. So I had 2 different foam rollers, one for the primer, then I threw that one out, then one for the paint, and then when I was done, I threw that one out too. I ended up spot painting a couple of areas. Again, I did 3 coats of paint, and there were just a few areas that needed a little bit of extra paint, and so I put some paint on there, but I didn't do a full 4th coat. And then once all of that was dry, I went in with the sealer.
Okay, I have rehung all of the doors for the most part. Right now, I'm just gonna put the drawers back in right here, and then also over here, as you can see, all of the doors are open because I still need to seal everything.
And you can definitely choose not to seal it because the Sherwin-Williams paint is known to cure and be really hard. But I really wanted to make sure that this project, since it had taken me so long, it was just going to be perfect and I want it to stand the test of time. So in the kitchen you have grease, you have food and heat and all of these other factors that I just wanted to make sure that I seal my cabinets. And so I picked up this. It is the Minwax water-based polyacrylic protective finish. And I got mine in clear satin. And this stuff was terrible. They say that you need to really stir it up because there's kind of like sediment at the bottom. And so I did that and it still made my cabinets completely glossy. And I hated it because glossy finishes can really show off all of the imperfections. And so I ended up doing a full coat of that, not knowing what was wrong, making sure it was stirred up, did another coat. It was still really glossy. So then I ended up going and getting the same thing only in the clear matte. And so this ended up being the stuff that I used. This made my cabinets matte again after they were glossy. And since there were already 2 coats of finish on there, I just made sure that it was fully covered with 1 coat of the matte and it was good to go. So now my cabinets are matte again, which I really like. I was thinking I wanted a satin finish, but I definitely didn't want a glossy finish. So I like the matte better than I like the glossy.
Okay, I have finished painting and sealing. So I'm gonna take off all of the tape all over here and then up here. And then I'm going to put my hardware on and I will be able to close the doors because I'll put the new bumpers on the back of all of the cabinets. So I will be right back. All right, guys, we're on to the final leg of this project. Finally, I cannot believe it. I'm just gonna put the poles on all of the drawers and then we are finally gonna be done with the cabinets and I will be able to show you guys my entire kitchen completely finished.
And then once all of the cabinets are sealed, it was time to put my new hardware on. I got all of these drawers and poles from Amazon. I will link them down below in the bottom bar. They were super affordable. I think this entire project cost me around $200. So to completely transform my kitchen for $200 was a pretty big steal in my head. But I put on all of the drawers and poles, and then also in your cabinets and on the drawers, you want to put new bumpers on because you don't want them slamming and hitting wood against wood. So I put new bumpers on and everything, and then I am good to go. It says that the sealer takes about 60 days to fully cure and be absolutely rock hard. It's been about a month so far. And so when I put all of my drawer pulls on and stuff, I didn't tighten them as tight as they could go just because I didn't want to dent the paint. So I will be tightening them in about a month, but for now they're totally secure and everything and they work just fine. But just something to keep in mind, and I'm not, I guess, as rough and tough. I make sure if I'm opening cabinets or drawers that I'm using the hardware, not putting my fingers all over the paint because it is new paint and I want it to last. This project was very time consuming and I want to get the most out of it. So I really questioned when I was in the middle of this project if I wanted to continue, and honestly, once I put my kitchen back together, I can't even recognize what my kitchen used to look like. I do still have a lot of work. I want to replace the countertops and the backsplash, but for now, I feel like painting the cabinets was a huge improvement and it was so affordable. So if you're thinking about doing it, I highly, highly recommend it. I just think that it was so worth the time and hassle, but definitely be prepared for it to be a little bit longer than you're expecting. I hope that this video was helpful for you, and now I'm going to show you my after of my entire kitchen and how it looks today.
All right, this is an overview of my kitchen now. I am just obsessed with how it looks, and then this is the other side of it. Please excuse the ladder right here. I am doing other projects, but this is the wall that I was talking about that is a lot of surface area. Lastly, I don't know why it's so yellow right now, but this is the view from the other room. So I also had to cover this whole area, and then all under here is all painted white too by all of my stools. So there was quite a bit of surface area, but I'm so happy with how it all turned out. Such a big improvement.
I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure you give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe down below so you don't miss any of my future videos. Thanks so much for watching. Bye guys.